The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind. In a village in Africa, where we see a few villagers working hard in the fields, among them is a man named John. As the camera follows him, he suddenly collapses while working. His body drops to the ground, and just like that, he dies on the spot. John wasn't just any villager, he was the brother of Chiwetel. Together, they were the first ones to introduce crop seeds in his village, a contribution that helped many others grow food and survive. That's why during John's funeral, the village priest tells the community to remember John and Chiwetel's efforts. He says everyone should always be grateful for what they brought to the land. It's an emotional moment that highlights how deeply connected the villagers are to one another. Chiwetel, devastated by the sudden death of his brother, now lives with his wife, son, and daughter. His life is tough, and now it's lonelier. Every day, Chiwetel goes to the fields, trying his best to grow crops and provide for his family. Meanwhile, his son William is quite different. He has a mind that's constantly curious, especially when it comes to machines. William often fixes things around the village, whether it's radios, bicycles, or anything mechanical. Right now, he's seen fixing a radio for his father. He's focused, hands covered in grease, as he tries to bring the device back to life. He's also an excellent student. He's smart, especially in subjects that involve electronics and science. One day, he puts on his new school uniform and heads off to school with his friend. He's excited, proud of his appearance, and hopeful about learning something new.
Looking sharp, eh?
But when he reaches school, a new problem begins. The principal announces that all students must pay school fees immediately. Those who fail to pay will be removed from the school. The announcement shakes William. He hasn't paid his fees yet. After class, his math teacher, Mr. Kashigunda, also reminds him that dues are pending. If he doesn't pay soon, he will be expelled.
Tell your father to pay the fees.
Upset and stressed, William returns home. He knows he's a good student and he wants to continue studying, but his family's financial situation is poor. His sister has been looking for a job, but without success. His father's earnings from farming are hardly enough to feed the family. At home, William's mother tells him to stop worrying about school and help his father in the fields. But William wants to study, he wants to learn, and he believes that education is his only escape from this cycle of poverty. That night, he asks his mother for some kerosene oil. He wants to study for a test coming up the next day, but his mother refuses, saying the oil is only meant for household chores and can't be wasted. The conversation ends there. The next day, William gets his test results. He scores 60 marks. He tells his friend that if he had a proper light to study by at night, he would have done even better. After school, William and his friend go to a junkyard. William searches through the piles of discarded items and finds an old battery. He's excited. He wants to use it to make a simple light source so he can study after dark. Meanwhile, another issue is brewing in the village. Outsiders arrive with representatives from a company. They make their offer to the villagers. They're ready to pay good money if the villagers agree to cut down the trees from their farmland. The village head is cautious. He explains that these trees are not just shades, they're a protective barrier. If they're cut down, the village may face floods in the coming seasons.
The only power we have is to say no.
Despite the warnings, the money is tempting. Slowly, many villagers start accepting the offer. Greed overtakes wisdom. One by one, people agree to cut down their trees. However, Chiwetel refuses. Even though he too is struggling financially, he doesn't want to put the entire village at risk. Back at home, William discusses his school fee situation with his father. Chiwetel tells him that he doesn't have the money right now, but once the harvest comes in, he'll use that income to pay for his son's education. That night, something strange happened. William sees his sister talking secretly with Mr. Kashigunda, his math teacher. He watches silently, curious and suspicious. The next morning, angry and confused, William messes with Kachigunda's bicycle. While doing so, he notices something fascinating. As the pedals turn, the cycle's light automatically switches on. William doesn't know how it works, but it grabs his full attention. This little spark will soon change everything. A few days later, William receives heartbreaking news he was officially expelled from school. because his family has been unable to pay the required fees.
Please go home and collect the fees if you wish to continue your studies.
This was a huge blow to him, as education was his only hope to change the harsh realities of life in the village. Meanwhile, the consequences of cutting down the trees began to show in the most devastating way. A massive flood swept through the village, washing away everything in its path. Chiwetel's fields, once full of promise and life, were completely destroyed by the rising waters. The fertile farmland now bare in mud, and there's nothing left to harvest. The flood left the village in a state worse than anyone could have imagined. Hope seemed to slip further away with each passing day. After this calamity, Chiwetel decided to seek help. He wanted to auction the house where a close friend worked, hoping to find a way to save what was left of the village. Chiwetel explained that he still had some savings, which he wanted to use to protect the remaining trees and prevent future disasters. But his friend, speaking from experience, warned him harshly. The rains had stopped, and now a severe drought was on its way. The friend advised Chiwetel to hold on to his money and prepare for the coming crisis.
You can't do business like that.
Soon enough, summer arrived. True to the warning, the drought took hold. The village's once lush fields dried up, cracked, and turned to dust under the relentless sun. Without water, the crops withered away and the land became completely barren. Chiwetel's hard work in the fields yielding nothing, and the community's struggle deepened. In desperation, Chiwetel went to the village chief to seek assistance. The chief listened carefully and told him some helpful news. The president was scheduled to visit the village in a few days. The chief encouraged Chiwetel to prepare to share the village's hardships with the president, hoping for some help from higher authorities.
You just let them know that we know what is happening.
Back in the village, William's situation was equally difficult. Though he had been expelled, his desire to learn had not diminished. Secretly, he sneaked into school every day to attend classes without permission. After one such class, William approached his teacher, Kachagunda, and asked about the light on his bicycle. Intrigued by how it worked, William wanted to understand the mechanism behind it. Teacher Kachagunda patiently explained the light was powered by an electric dynamo that's attached to the bicycle. He said that the dynamo converts the movement of the wheel's kinetic energy into electrical energy, which powers the light. William was fascinated but still didn't fully grasp the concept. He wanted to buy one for himself, but of course, he did not have the money. Determined, William expressed his desire to build one himself. However, even Kachagunda admitted that he wasn't sure how to make a dynamo. Seeing William's determination, the teacher offered to help and suggested they study more about electricity together at the school library. But there was one problem. William was no longer officially allowed on school grounds, so he had no access to the library.
I don't have a library card.
In a bold move, William confronted the teacher and revealed that he knew about Kachagunda's secret relationship with William's sister. He hinted that if the teacher did not help him, he would expose their secret to the whole village. Faced with no choice, the teacher agreed to let William use the library to study. Inside the library, William eagerly began reading books about energy and electricity, absorbing as much knowledge as he could. Meanwhile, the president arrived in the village as planned. The village chief gave a speech before the president, outlining the dire problem the villagers faced.
Created a dangerous situation.
But the hope for assistance was shattered when the president's men dragged the chief behind the stage and beat him brutally. The situation escalated further when someone fired a gun in the crowd, causing chaos and panic. With no leader and no support, the villagers found themselves completely helpless in their struggle. The time for harvest came, but because of the drought, the crops had failed for the most part. Only a tiny fraction would be collected. At home, food supplies were dangerously low, and the family's hardships worsened. In a desperate bid, Chiwetel removed the metal sheets from the roof of the house and went to the market to sell them, hoping to gather some money to keep his family going. While in the city, Chiwetel heard a government broadcast on the radio. The officials claimed that there was no shortage of food anywhere in the country, but Chiwetel knew the truth. The shortage was real, and everything from food to basic goods was becoming more expensive every day. Feeling a mixture of fear and anger, Chiwetel went back home. Along the way, he noticed a group of people holding a protest rally against the government. They were opposition supporters, speaking out against the injustice and hardship faced by the people. Filled with frustration and a sense of hopelessness, Chiwetel sat down with them and joined the protest, hoping to make his voice heard and stand up against their unfair system. Meanwhile, William, who had been secretly attending class despite not paying his school fees, was finally caught by the principal. The principal spotted him sitting quietly in the classroom and without hesitation, publicly scolded and humiliated him in front of the students. His angry words echoed through the room as he accused William of disrespect and dishonesty. Furious, the principal abruptly threw William out of the classroom,
Collect your things and go!
making it clear that he was no longer welcome. Crying and heartbroken, William trudged back home. When he reached the village, he noticed several government trucks parked nearby. These trucks had been sent by the authorities to supply food grains, which were to be sold in the village at subsidized prices to help the struggling families. William's mother gave him some money and sent him to stand in line for the food distribution. The crowd was enormous, pushing and shoving to get their share. As the workers began to close the warehouse gates due to the overwhelming crowd, William managed to sneak inside the godown just before it was sealed. Meanwhile, back at home, William's mother and sister were left alone. Suddenly, a group of men broke into their house, taking advantage of the chaos. They ruthlessly stole the remaining grain and harvested crops the family had saved. William's mother tried desperately to stop them, but the men escaped, disappearing into the night with everything. At the godown, William managed to secure some food rations and headed back home with relief. Shortly after, Chiwetel returned. Seeing him, William's mother confronted Chiwetel with tears of anger and frustration. She blamed him for everything, the flood, the drought, the stolen crops, because he had left the family to join the protest rally, leaving them defenseless. That night, the whole family gathered to take stock of their dwindling resources. They painfully realized there was only enough food left for a single meal each day. William's sister was overwhelmed by despair. She stood up abruptly and walked away, tears streaming down her face. William's mother followed, trying to comfort her. But the sister's frustration erupted into anger, and she slapped their mother in a moment of uncontrollable rage. The mother was deeply hurt, both physically and emotionally. Overcome with grief, she pulled her daughter into a light embrace, tears flowing freely as she clung to the last pieces of her broken family. Their situation had worsened. Food scarce, the little crop they'd managed to save was gone, and famine now gripped the entire village. People were starving. Hope seemed a distant memory. One quiet night, William approached his sister gently. He quietly admitted, "I know you have feelings for Kachagunda." Then he asked if she could convince him to give William the dynamo from his bicycle, because William wanted to use it to generate electricity. The next morning, William's mother was found crying outside their house, clutching a piece of paper in her hands. William's sister had run away from home. When William went into her room, he found the bicycle dynamo lying where she had left it. It was a silent message. Though she had left with Kachagunda, she left behind the dynamo for William. Filled with renewed determination, William connected the dynamo to a radio and attached a small homemade windmill. As the wind turned the blades, the radio crackled to life. William's face lit up with joy. The experiment had worked. Excited beyond words, he ran to the fields to show Chiwetel his invention. He demonstrated how the windmill-powered dynamo could generate electricity, but Chiwetel looked confused and frustrated, unable to understand how the small machine could possibly help. William then told him about his bigger dream to build a larger windmill. But for that, he would need Chiwetel's bicycle as part of the mechanism. Chiwetel exploded with anger. He scolded William harshly, calling the invention childish toys, and told him to focus on real work in the fields to help the family survive. Though disheartened, William reluctantly agreed and started helping Chiwetel with the farming. William and some of Ravel's friends approached Chiwetel again, asking for the bicycle to help with the windmill. But Chiwetel's temper flared once more. and he angrily chased them away. That evening, William's mother went to Chiwetel and shared her pain. She told him how she had lost her own parents, how Annie, her daughter, had run away, and how she had feared losing William too. Her heartfelt words struck a deep chord with Chiwetel. Meanwhile, tragedy struck again. William's loyal dog died, weakened by hunger and days without food. William sat beside the lifeless animal, crying his heart out. Later that night, moved by the family's suffering and William's passion, Chiwetel came to him and said softly, "You can take my bicycle." With hope rekindled, William took the bicycle to a local mechanic who modified it exactly as William had envisioned. Word quickly spread as the entire village came together to help build a large windmill. When it was finally completed, they installed the dynamo from the bicycle onto the windmill. As the windmill's blades began to turn, the dynamo started charging the battery. Soon, the water pump by the village well sprang to life, and fresh water gushed out. The villagers erupted in celebration, cheering, laughing, and filled with hope for the first time in months. Chiwetel hugged William tightly, and together they looked out over the fields, where life was beginning to return. Crops sprouted from the earth once again, green and vibrant. The village was coming back to life. One day, standing proudly atop the windmill, William gazed down at the flourishing fields below, knowing his hard work and determination had changed everything. News of William's invention soon reached his school. In recognition of his brilliance and perseverance, they awarded him a lifetime scholarship, ensuring he could study free for the rest of his life. So this was William Kambwamba, a 14-year-old boy from a small village based on his own memoir of the same name, who didn't slow down or wait for a miracle to happen. When the world told him to stop, he kept going. When there was no school, he found books. When there was no light, he built one. If you feel inspired by this story, don't forget to like the video. It encourages us to bring more stories like this to you. Also, subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any upcoming videos.